Man jet skis across the sea to see his girlfriend, but gets an unfriendly welcome. How far would you go for true love? Dale McLaughlin jet skied 25 miles from Scotland to the Isle of Man just to see his girlfriend, but once he landed, he was met with a presence that was none too pleased to see him. Dale showed us that there are certain risks to being romantic in 2020. Helpless romantic. When Dale McLaughlin found love, he held on tight. Years before meeting his true soulmate, the Brit fell for classmate Corin Hastings. They had 2 children together before going their separate ways. But that was fine because Dale soon met a woman he would do anything for. Roofing romance. The wonderful meeting occurred when Dale was working on the Isle of Man as a roofer. It was an ordinary job until he came across Jessica Radcliffe. They soon fell in love, but found that staying together wasn't that easy. Ferried across. Living on the mainland, Dale had to cross the Irish Sea whenever he wished to see his lady love. In normal times, there was a simple solution. A regular ferry to the Isle of Man. But with the 2020 pandemic, that transit option was docked indefinitely. So close yet so far. On a clear day, he could see the Isle of Man jutting out above the sea. It was only 27 miles away. Jessica was more or less stuck on the island, but Dale got to thinking, why couldn't he just make a trip to see her? Setting out, the roofer made a big investment of both time and money. Dale woke up around 8 a.m. on December 11th and drove to Scotland's west coast, where he purchased the jet ski the day before. From there, he got his engines roaring. Miscalculations. Though by no means an expert navigator, Dale figured the journey would take him 40 minutes. He thought he would be there and back before anyone could possibly notice, but the roofer's calculations were way off. On top of that, he was ignorant of some serious dangers. Dale can't swim. Reports from the Scottish Sun said that Dale had no idea how to swim or ride a jet ski. Bless his heart. If he fell off his vehicle or had any mechanical problems, the roofer would be helpless in the middle of the open sea. And life or death situations weren't his only threat. It's easy to forget, but international laws apply the invisible borders in the sky and sea at all times. For most, this isn't an issue, but they can get you in trouble when you're traveling from one government-controlled area to another. It never occurred to Dale that the Isle of Man might have its own guidelines. 10 minutes to spare. It didn't take long for Dale to realize he drastically underestimated the length of his trip. His 40-minute plan was blown to smithereens. Luckily, after 4.5 hours, he reached the Isle of Man coast. Had Dale only spent 10 minutes more on his jet ski, his fuel tank would have gone empty. East Side Landing. From there, Dale drove to the northeastern tip of the Isle of Man, ending up in the town of Ramsey around 1 p.m. with only a few minutes to spare. He'd told Jessica to enjoy a pleasant surprise that day, and Dale didn't intend to let her down. Go time. Still dripping wet in places, Dale left his car and walked on foot to the island's capital of Douglas. He found his girlfriend Jessica Radcliffe's home, and he knocked. The smile on her face convinced him that it was all worth it, at least for a few hours. Totally unaware. Nobody can say if her claim is true, but later reports suggest that Jessica was totally unaware of the lengths Dale had taken to reach her. All she said was that they had a nice date at a local wine bar around 1:30 a.m. on December 13th. But the good times ended soon. Major search. Of course, he was gone for so long that people couldn't help but notice. Dale's excursion soon became classified as a disappearance, and authorities began formal search and rescue missions, assuming the worst. Naturally, police reached out to his girlfriend Jessica. Caught red-handed, that's when they learned about the truth of Dale's stunt. The lovelorn jet skier perhaps expected a slap on the wrist for causing everyone so much worry, but he found himself speechless when the police put him in handcuffs. COVID risk. Dale hadn't been aware, but since COVID-19 outbreak, the United Kingdom had imposed strict guidelines regarding visitors between the islands. Isle of Man officials sternly told the roofer about all of the laws he'd broken. Very different situation. The Isle of Man is in a very different situation to the United Kingdom and many other countries in relation to coronavirus, said a statement from the Isle of Man Chief Minister Howard Quayle. Completely astonished, our community has worked together to contain and eliminate the virus to protect those most vulnerable to COVID-19, Howard continued, so I was astonished to learn that someone had traveled from the United Kingdom to the Isle of Man by jet ski at the weekend, breaching our border restrictions. Respect where it's due. Despite his major line crossing, Dale earned the respect of millions across the world, including his own captors. The internet celebrated his bravery, even in the face of the arrest. Still, the Isle of Man wasn't going to let him off that easy. All for ingenuity. On the Isle of Man, we're all for ingenuity, Quayle continued. Unfortunately, this was an incredibly reckless, dangerous endeavor which could have ended very differently given the time of year. Finally arrested, Dale was arrested 16 hours later and was charged with 4 weeks in jail. This individual was aware of the law and showed a flagrant disregard when they chose to break it. The chief minister, Howard Quayle, said, mixing in the community and potentially putting lives at risk. He would spend 28 days behind bars. A clear warning. Quayle stood by the court's decision. I hope this sends a strong signal to others who do not take our laws seriously or who are mistaken in thinking that the rules do not apply to them. However, there is a silver lining to Dale's well-intentioned bumbling. Future plans. Jessica is prepared to spend the rest of her life with him. I meant it when I said I'd marry him if he asked me. Anyone who is prepared to cross an ocean to see you has got to be serious, she said. At the very least, starting a family together would prevent them from ever having to break maritime law again. Interestingly enough, he wasn't the only dreamer to break these rules.